Trade Committee's report. The question is that the report of the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee on the 2011-12 financial review of the Ministry of Defence be noted.
Mr Chairman,
The Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Chairman, what the review of the Defence Force showed at the Select Committee was that the last year, under the stewardship of Minister Jonathan Coleman, was the worst year in the modern history of the New Zealand Defence Force. Plummeting morale. Mr Chairman, the morale in the Defence Force crashed from 58% when Minister Coleman took over, or his government took over government, to 35%, the lowest morale rate in the history of the survey of the Defence Force under Minister Coleman. And then there was the question of attrition. It soared to 21%. You know, that's more than 1 in 5 of our most skilled and our most experienced members of the Defence Force quitting in 1 year. And then look at the numbers of the Defence Force. They crashed by over 1,000 in 1 year. Minister Coleman, you gutted the New Zealand Defence Force.
No, order. Just to remind the member, we're actually not on the New Zealand Defence Force. We're on the Ministry. Order. We're on the Ministry of Defence. The next appropriation is the Defence Force. So,
don't be sorry.
If the member order, I'm on my feet. The member, we're focusing on Ministry of Defence. If you want to focus on that, otherwise we'll have to wait. For what you're talking about is the New Zealand Defence Force. Honourable Phil Goff.
Well, Mr Chairman, the Ministry of Defence has responsibility for policy governing the Defence Force, and I'm sure that the Ministry of Defence is utterly shattered that the policy that they set out cannot be carried out by the New Zealand Defence Force because it's no longer capable of doing so. The Minister of Defence pretends that there is capability to carry out the policy of the Minister of Defence. That is denied by the Auditor-General. The Auditor-General says that there has been damage done to the Defence Force and there is reduced capability. Now, Minister, how can you say that there is no reduced capability when the Auditor-General contradicts you absolutely? The Ministry of Defence relies on having a Defence Force to carry out the policy. Yet in a recent court of inquiry into the death of Corporal Doug Hughes, that court of inquiry found that the Defence Force was unable simultaneously to carry out the tasks required of it by the New Zealand government. It could not sustain the Rugby World Cup at the same time as sending a force on deployment to Afghanistan. In fact, the Minister should explain why it was that that force went there with 40% less training than was required, and the warrant officer said that they were inadequately prepared.
Point of order. The Honourable Dr.
Mr Chair, I'd just like to reiterate your point for the second time in less than 5 minutes. Mr Goff is on the wrong vote.
I'll determine that. Honourable
Speaker, Minister did pathetically at question time and he won't do any better now. What the Minister needs to understand is that there's no point in having a Ministry of Defence unless it's got the capability to carry out the policies that are set out there. And what that report showed was that we were putting our people at risk by not adequately preparing them for the deployment. When a warrant officer of the New Zealand Army says our people are not prepared, but I have no choice but to send them, that is an indictment on the New Zealand government. The main responsibility of any government deploying people overseas in pursuit of Defence Force and the new Ministry of Defence policy is to keep our people safe. How can you keep people safe when you cut their training, and you cut their training, for example, in terms of management of stress and identification of stress? Is it any wonder that the family of Corporal Doug Hughes said that this government should hold an inquest because there were things sadly lacking in the preparation of our people before they went into a zone where their lives were at risk, Mr Speaker. The New Zealand Ministry of Defence has to have a defence force that is capable of carrying out its policy. It doesn't have that when the attrition in the defence force is so great that 1,000 people leave and we can't even put our ships to sea. The Ministry of Defence acquired new ships for the Defence Force, brand new inshore patrol vessels, done by the Ministry of Defence. They sit idle at the wharf in the Minister of Defence's electorate because they cannot be put to sea, because they do not have the personnel to sail them. How humiliating that we have to go to the Australian Defence Force to borrow Australian sailors to put our ships at sea. Minister, you have failed the New Zealand Defence Force and the Ministry of Defence. You have no right to hold that position. You should resign.
The question is that the report of the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee on the 2011-12 financial review of the Ministry of Defence be noted. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, I understand the next financial review members wish to debate is the financial review of the New Zealand Defence Force.
Mr Chair.
Well, members, please turn to the